Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here on this edition of the REI Hacker Podcast. Super excited for my next guest. His name is Alejandro Lovera. He's the founder of a company called ManyBuild. It's a groundbreaking platform that streamlines the construction project management process through bilingual virtual assistants and advanced technologies. He manages a private equity fund. He's a licensed contractor and a fix and flipper here in Denver, Colorado. Alex, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I know you're super busy. You got lots of balls in the air.
I appreciate the invite, Benson. Thank you for your time because I know the same could be said about you. I know you're a busy man as well.
I am, but like we were talking about earlier, like this is a great way for time to pass, right? Like, can you imagine being on your couch, bored out of your mind, and just thinking about like, well, what's next? What does life have in store for me? But like, we're creating our own futures.
Yeah, I don't think I could stay still. I need to be working on at least two or three things at once. I've definitely had the opportunity to kind of sit back and sit on the couch, but it's just in
I
you to
know.
stay busy.
It's frustrating. And there's also, I mean, there's a way of staying busy and like really not getting anything done. But then there's also like a
True.
way of being productive. Like, how have you been able to set yourself up to manage all of these different things you have your hands in?
So I agree. I think time management is one of the biggest things that everybody talks about, right? But I think I have an advantage in the fact that a lot of the things that I'm working on, they're very synergistic, right? They're in the same industry, the same line of business. So although it may sound I'm a tech startup founder and a contractor and a private equity guy, they all kind of work together and can grow together. It's all in the same industry. If I focus on building out the tech side of things, it only facilitates the construction side of things. If I build out the private equity loan side of things, it generates more leads and revenue for the construction and the tech side of things. So I think if you're trying to tackle on, multiple projects or do multiple businesses. A lot of people say you got to focus on one thing and make sure that thing, takes off before you start divesting your attention or your resources. I would disagree. I mean, I think, if you're young enough or you're at the age where you can kind of narrow in on one industry and try to solve a couple problems in one industry, and they can all kind of feed off each other, go for it. I just wouldn't say, don't start a clothing brand business and a real estate business and then a car rental through sharing business because those are just completely different industries and you're just not, because you just made headway in the retail side of things, it's not helping anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's great advice, especially for new entrepreneurs. A lot of us have shiny object syndrome. I know I do. But you are exactly right. I've been fortunate enough to launch different businesses that are synergistic in like, real estate, privy, omni marketplace. Like it's all in the same kind of ecosystem and they can feed off of each other and help those
Correct.
other businesses grow. I think it's a smart move. Also to like to vertically integrate. I was talking with a
Correct.
guy recently who, as a fix and flipper, is doing lots of flips, and so now he's buying service companies. So he's buying companies that
Yep.
do painting, and he's buying plumbing companies, and all things that he was paying for previously, and giving them a lot of business. And he's like, "Well, I should just start my own or buy one of those." So it's smart to also vertically integrate.
I agree. I mean, I've definitely, even in my construction side, so as a general contractor, you work with multiple trades and they're all your subcontractors, right? We had ventured and tried to do the painting business and become kind of our own painting trade as well as a painting trade for other bigger construction companies. We went as far as even doing framing and becoming a framing trade for larger framing companies around town. Definitely a lot more challenging because they are still their own businesses with their own like labor and stuff you need to deal with. I'm more of on the service side. I want to service the same businesses in the same industry versus more businesses in the same industry. Hopefully that makes sense because I can learn, right? I'm sure you have too. You tackle different parts of the industry and then you learn some things and then you can apply it to all the businesses as long as you stay more on the software service side. I think there's more it's more scalable than
Right.
trying to just bolt on a bunch of businesses that kind of are in the same industry because it's just, in my opinion, a lot more of headaches.
Yeah.
But that is one way to do it. I mean, I could potentially see myself instead of just offering, funding through our platform, ManyBuild for flips. and construction admin services, we could potentially also start offering, materials or some kind of storefront to bulk order some materials that that we're ordering a lot for our clients. So
Yeah.
there's definitely a way to vertically integrate. Just you can't go too far up the vertical integration before you just start creating more work for yourself, and you kind of start losing those synergistic scalable solutions.
Yeah.
Don't go too far up the integration train.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's on a case by case situation too, right?
Right.
So before we talk more about many build, tell me a little bit about your background. Um, it- Doing a little bit of research, it looks like you've come from many generations of people who are in the contractor construction world, and your origins go back to Aruba.
Yes, yes. Sounds sounds very poetic, and it's coming from the islands and stuff. But it's true. So I grew up in a family of developers and architects. I'm technically a third generation developer builder. However, that wasn't always going to be my career choice. I actually went to school for hospitality management at the University of Denver, and I happened to have a minor in financial analysis and real estate and legal studies. But my original idea when I was, going to school is like I wanted to be a restaurateur or an event and promotions guy, throw concerts and music festivals. I actually did a few while I was in school. Whenever I'd go back home for the summer, I'd organize some concerts with my friends, and we'd all meet there for the summer. Everybody coming back from their respective schools. Um, but it was honestly by chance that I ended up working for a private equity real estate developer here in town. His name was Ben Maxwell, very good mentor and friend of mine, still to this day. And I got my start actually doing acquisitions or bird dogging, right? Door knocking, door to door, finding off market deals. I think that's the best way to start if you're getting into the real estate industry because it has no upfront capital requirements, just your time, right? And I think the caveat there is, and where I had a lot of success was, of course, knowing the right people. And when I would go door knock, I was going with very targeted list. Like Ben was telling me which properties he wanted, and as long as I was able to get those properties on his list in a room with him or a contract in front of him, we would close. So having a
Mhm.
buyer kind of in your back pocket and then going to look for deals is a lot more productive than trying to find deals and then try to go get a buyer.
Yeah.
Because you'll spend months. I mean, when I started working for Ben over at HM, I was doing a year's worth of work before I started getting paid. I was part of a city block assemblage where I basically got about 8 to 10 different properties, if I recall correctly, assembled for a city block development he wanted to do there. And those take, months to get done, if not a year.
Hmm.
Um, if you're doing even regular wholesaling, you'll take a couple months before you can get the deal. And if you don't have a buyer already lined up, or you get it at the wrong price because you just don't know any better, um, it's going to be all for nothing. So
Yeah.
that was kind of how I got started in real estate and in Denver before I kind of went off into the construction realm. I worked for him for about 2 to 3 years, doing the bird dogging acquisition side, and then eventually being part of the construction team and sitting in on construction meetings when we were going through zoning changes. Like I got a crash course in real estate development, being part of that Park Hill Commons ground up. I saw it from homes still there through the demolition process, build process, and then even the lease up process, which I was able to be a part of too. We actually the lease up process was done during COVID, so learning
Mm.
about leasing during COVID was definitely not the norm, and but still a very good experience.
Oh yeah. So you guys bought this block, was all single family, and then did you build multifamily on it?
Yeah, so it was actually a block that had mixed use zoning. So I learned a lot about zoning and how to kind of vet and do due diligence on properties, figure out who are the real property owners. And then at the time, I was, I consider myself pretty tech savvy, then being able to look them up on social media, do kind of like dark web searches to find out their numbers and emails to get in contact, because that's your second challenge is getting in contact with the owner. So that was pretty advantageous for me. And then it was all single family, but it was also a church. So I had to deal with a church delegation to convince them to sell.
Mm.
because they were stuck in construction for years. They ran out of money, couldn't finish it, so the church was basically abandoned. So working with them, worked with the restaurant, so dealing with the restaurateur and figure out, if we were to buy your property, would you want a location in the new building? Because the building was, in need of, a lot of deferred maintenance. So it wasn't just straight up, take this money and leave us alone, or just take this money and you'll be happy. We definitely needed to learn. It was a combination of money and incentives on the back end, and try and understand each person's situation. There was another one. There was a nightclub that had been bought in bankruptcy that was abandoned, and then in
Wow.
between some houses, some that were owned by primary, homeowners that lived there, and others that were owned by some investors around town that I had to go find out where they lived and kind of track them down that way to get an offer in their hands.
So you're like a private investigator at the same time.
Essentially, I think if you're going to be a successful wholesaler, you have to kind of develop those skills. So let's call them, PI skills or
Hmm.
somewhat of a stalker. Those are some skills that a stalker would
Yeah,
would uh would be good to have.
that's cool. I can imagine that would be such a great learning experience of just like an entrepreneurship, right? Like persevering,
Right.
pushing through, learning sales, like everything's like OJT, on the job training, and you were just trying to figure it out, right? And probably like most people wouldn't have done that job, right? They would have started off and then, hit a couple roadblocks, I mean, like this isn't for me, and then go and try to find something more stable.
Yeah, it was definitely a trial by fire. I mean, he mentored me and gave me some guidance, but at the beginning, he's like, "Okay, this is the block I want. This is your business email. This is the business cards. This is how you search up the owners. Like, get them in a room with me, and then you'll learn the rest as needed. But step one is we need to get these offers in people's hands." I remember one of the last ones one of the last owners that had held out was due to me not clicking. So, if you're familiar with the county assessor's records online, if the owner's name is too long, it gets cut off at the end.
Yeah.
So, and the first owner's name was long and it got cut off at the end. And I wasn't mindful enough to go click on it. So, but there was and there was a second owner there. So
Oh,
we were negotiating and dealing with somebody that wasn't really the owner. I mean, they were on title, but the one that had the final decision making power was this other person that I hadn't made any inroads with, and we're months into this assemblage. So to try to start making inroads with somebody later in, it gets a lot harder. Lo and behold, I did figure out, who owned it, where they lived, and then I figured out where they worked, and I had sent them flowers because they weren't answering me. I had sent them flowers to their job, to their work, to get them to call me back,
smart.
and that's how we got the call back, and ultimately we're able to kind of close off the assemblage because we were in the middle of about to close on all these properties, and we had one of the last owners holding out. And I wouldn't have made it as beautiful of a project that it ended up being with the whole block, one cohesive project, one cohesive development.
Yeah. So that project is completely finished now. It's all built, leased,
Yep.
and he's on to the next one, huh?
Yeah, he's on to the next one. I think he's like more semi-retired, just waiting out, just figuring out what to do next. I think there's some more macroeconomic, political, real estate rate stuff that that's probably a whole nother podcast you can get into about
Yeah.
that has him on the sidelines for now. But yes, it was a really great project, and I also ended up doing a lot of townhouse assemblages and stuff, just finding some really good neighborhoods and pockets around town. Like he was investing in Sunnyside and parts of Lakewood and Denver that we've really seen like huge growth over the last 10 years or so.
Hmm.
He was definitely one of the first, the townhouse all built to rent kind of projects that he was doing
Cool.
early in Denver and early in my career.
Awesome. So you've done a lot of different things, and something drove you to create Many Build, right? And so what were the problems that you saw out there where people were maybe doing things kind of the old-fashioned way or manually? Like where were you trying to add efficiencies, and what were you trying to solve?
So primarily the first place where I saw some of these inefficiencies or problems was at that private equity company where I was working at during the construction management process. The builder all of a sudden was, inundated with a ton of work, which is a great problem to have. But when it came to the number of subcontractors in their network, when you start inundating their same subs with 5 to 10 jobs now, at a certain point they hit capacity, and then they're going to start hiring other subs, adding their fees and markups to that, and you're now no longer dealing directly with the subcontractor, getting the best prices. And a lot of times builders and even real estate developers, they have their guys that are trusted and they have their network. But if they ever need more contractors, or grow to get too much work and they need to start stepping outside of their network, there wasn't a place or a marketplace where you could find contractors. Yes, there's a home advisor. Yes, there's Angie's List, Thumbtack, stuff like that, but it's not meant for builders to find contractors that are focused in working with builders and in construction. There
Mm-hmm.
was stuff more towards homeowners, right, for small improvement projects. So that's where I saw the first kind of gap, where it's like, okay, how do I find contractors? And we couldn't find it. And we ran kind of a test ad where I would just walk around a job site speaking English in one video, Spanish in another. And we just recruited a bunch of people off of Facebook and just signed up like 300 contractors, and then started learning more about the vetting process, creating a network. And then as you started creating a network, creating this marketplace, which then put us down a rabbit hole of like, well, now the marketplace needs to have payment processing, you need estimating, ways to submit estimates. How do you communicate plans? You need to be able to chat. You need to be able to see a profile of like, who are you dealing with? What kind of information needs to be in the profile? So that kind of put me in the rabbit hole of the mobile app development that's been taking a few years to do, because it's completely bootstrapped and we've done it ourselves.
Mm.
And at a certain point, I also figured out like, okay, I'm going to need to go, after I'd finished working for the previous company for a few years, sat through the construction side of things, basically had a choice to keep going or kind of go off on my own and do my own thing. With an open door policy, it was kind of where he sat me down and he said, okay, either you want to go see this through and run with it, or you're gonna have to come back and stay here, and you're gonna have to drop whatever it is that you're doing now, because we need property management, we need leasing. This is turning into a full-time job. You're no longer a commission contractor if you stay. um so I decided to go off on my own and apply to become a licensed general contractor with a Class C license in Denver. Did all the testing, had the experience, at least administratively, and the referral letters kind of back it up. And then went into construction kind of full time, where I worked for Invitation Homes, which is a nationwide REIT that does, single family rentals. They had like a standardized package and pricing on how they wanted to have all of their units converted to their rental grade units. I'd worked for Zillow during their Zillow Home Offers fiasco, where they tried to
Yeah.
try to be fix and flippers themselves and lost, I don't know how many billions of dollars
Oh my
in
God.
a year. And that was in the headlines. I mean, they cut that off. I mean, they realized that they're not a construction company; they're a tech company. But it was a very good learning experience for me, because I went through, probably 20, 30 projects in a matter of months, and was able to kind of build up my own contractor base, tap into that same, network that I was already building up for this other builder. And it was great experience to kind of be able to say like, okay, I know the problems that need to be solved because I've faced them and dealt with them myself building a construction company.
Yeah. So tell us more about ManyBuild and what it's supposed to accomplish. What does it do? What problems are you solving, and who are your users? Who are you trying to reach?
So really, ManyBuild, like you put it, is a platform that connects what we call project creators and project doers to work in the real world, right? And I feel like nowadays you have to kind of clarify that, because everything's so virtual, or it's meta, or it's AI. What we're trying to do is, a project creator can be anybody who has work, either a real estate investor or builder, but we're primarily focused with real estate investors. And the only caveat is that you kind of need to know what you're doing. You can't go in there, not know your pricing, not know job descriptions. We have our virtual assistants and agents that can help you with that, but you need to have a good understanding um, about what you're looking for. Our platform helps facilitate a lot of that with pre-built kind of scopes of works and trades and contracts to help guide you. But you need to come with the project, and you need to come with some numbers in mind, which again, we can help you formulate those numbers. But you can be a project creator. All you need is an address, photo, budget, and then you can start creating contracts, scopes of work. Those scopes of work then go and get pushed to our marketplace, which you can connect with the project doers. And we consider project doer anybody that is a licensed electrician, plumber, skilled trade, or skilled labor. What we're trying to accomplish with ManyBuild is we want to always make sure that the project creators are hiring directly the project doers. We're trying to cut out as many middlemen as possible when it comes to hiring work, especially when you're a real estate investor and your builder, because your bottom line and your profits are directly impacted by your labor costs.
Mm-hmm.
Materials can go up, materials can, those, we can't control those, but your labor costs and removing kind of, if you're on Home Advisor, there's a person support fee. Home Advisor themselves, since it's such a volume business for the businesses that are on Home Advisor, they typically are dealing with a call center, a company with a huge office, back admin staff to kind of process all of those leads that are getting sent. We want to work directly with the contractors that are still, either managing their own crews or still in the field doing their own work, because those guys provide the best value, as well as sometimes the best work with direct communication to each trade and each owner. We're trying to eliminate the whole, when you talk to one contractor, he's like, oh yeah, I have a cousin that does electrician, or I have a cousin that does plumbing, or I have an uncle that does drywall. It's like, okay, great. Let's, get your uncle on the platform and he can get his own work directly. And there's no more, of this, people tacking on their fees or their referral fees. We want to kind of eliminate as many of that, as much of that as possible,
Mm.
and get people that do the work connected directly with the work.
Got it. But there's still a GC layer, right? Is that the first hire is the GC and then the trades?
It's up to the real estate investor how they want to handle it, right? So either the real estate investor can be posting the projects themselves and hiring the crews directly, because a lot of times a real estate investor is to a degree self-managing their projects, right? They may have a crew lead for each trade that's kind of in charge of scopes and schedules. But we want to enable the real estate investor to manage their own project as much as possible. If they are doing a project that requires, full rehab, or where we're adding bedrooms, bathrooms, and you're doing a second floor addition, well, then you're probably better off hiring a general contractor. And then maybe the general contractor would use our platform to connect with all the subs, and then you as the investor or the owner of that project could see kind of the whole spider web or the whole network of people that he's hiring. So you can understand kind of which companies are working on your platform. You have oversight over who's getting paid, whether you want to pay the GC, and then the GC's processing their payments through the platform. All of that would kind of give you more oversight. But you, as the real estate investor and owner of the property, you will be given kind of the power to be your own GC on your own projects.
Hmm. So it's like a matching system, right? For
Right.
the creators to find the doers. I've heard it described as the Tinder of construction.
Yes, that is what it's called. And then like a dating app, there are still some risks, right? You still gotta we vet our profiles and our contractors as much as possible, but especially if you're meeting somebody for the first time on ManyBuild or on Tinder, you still want to try people out, right? So I like that comparison, but I always put the caveat of, like, treat your contractors like on a first date too. Don't give them $100,000 just because you met them on the app, and
Right,
then hope that it
exactly.
all goes well. Um,
Yeah, so there's a layer of, where they had to do their due diligence and probably lots of waivers that you have people sign on both sides because you guys don't want
yes.
to be caught liability wise for something going sideways and somebody getting taken, right? So there's probably a lot of legal paperwork that needs to be signed so everybody knows what's what.
There is, and then we do have a lot of guardrails set up in the system. Like I said, you can go in and become your own GC, because we guide the user through how to create a project. So they have a list of tasks that can be done on each room, organized by phase, organized by room. Those tasks have clear scope of work descriptions, which we add to the contract. And then in order for you to award a job, we then force you to create a payment schedule as well. So we do put a lot of guardrails of, like, what are industry standard, best practices. Whereas, if you were on your own and you're trying to figure this out, like, well, I know a lot of real estate investors that are busy and they maybe fall behind on doing contracts because they've worked with this subcontractor for a very long time. They trust them, and then there's a discrepancy on what the scope was. or the contractor starts falling behind on work and now there's nothing in writing to kind of enforce timelines. Or, you trusted him and you paid him 50% up front when typically you always do 25 or 30. And now, he's disappeared or somebody in his family got really sick and he no longer can come back to the work. And now you're stuck, trying to find somebody, you're behind on payments, and you're kind of trying to, play catch up. With ManyBuild, we're trying to avoid all of those kind of administrative tasks, because the app will do it for you. Our virtual assistants will help guide you through that and make sure that you are, keeping everything that you can under control. And then the unforeseen stuff, like I mentioned before, contractor not showing up, work not being completed correctly, those risks still exist.
Right.
I can't, you know, put our better reputation on the fact that every contractor on there is going to be 100% correct every single time. It's construction. But what I can say is that we will give you the best possible chance of hiring the right person and having the right processes in place to make it easy to fire that person and get connected with another contractor pretty quickly, because we do have, that bench strength. We do have multiple, drywallers, multiple electricians available at a moment's notice,
Mhm.
to do the mobile app.
Very cool. Yeah, I definitely think that's important too, where I think of, especially a newer investor might come in thinking they can just be completely disconnected from the process and someone's going to handle the whole thing for them, which,
Right.
there are situations where you can do that, but you're going to pay, a really good GC to handle all of that and, take over basically all of the liability of that.
Correct.
How would you incorporate the virtual assistants in this whole process, and what do they help with?
Uh, like any, software, everybody wants to rely solely on software and automations and stuff, but you still need to, the software is only as handy as you using it and keeping it up to date, right? So, there's always a learning curve with new systems and new softwares. And what we're trying to accomplish with the virtual assistant is to make it easier for you to implement it in your business and a lot easier to keep it up to date as well. So the ultimate goal is I want investors to only have to worry about, if they use our platform, is just to go check on the job site, take some progress pics and photos, do some quality control, and everything else, scheduling wise, administratively wise, follow up wise, payment processing wise, can be handled by this virtual assistant that is integrated and comes with the software. So instead of having something like, software as a service, what we're trying to focus on is software and a service. So
Mm,
having this virtual assistant keep your database up to date, do some follow up. Like sometimes, a push notification, an SMS reminder goes out to a contractor to submit a report, or to, they're behind on work. Sometimes they're too busy, they're not checking their phone, or they forget. Our virtual assistant will actually call them, and they can be a person, there that's speaking with them and asking them, send me this photo and I'll just update it for you, or when are you going to be done because you're 2 days behind and you haven't updated the app yet, I can just update it for you. So it's to help keep and maintain, the mobile app, and then also just being there as like a virtual support. So if there's anything, especially since we're still so young and bootstrapping a lot of the features and stuff we're building, we don't want to have software be a limitation to how we can help all the, the real estate investors and flippers. We know what it takes to get a flip done. We have a bunch of processes and procedures. We have a bunch of, vendor contacts. We still want to be able to help engage, with those resources. And sometimes, maybe for the large part, it's not going to be through a software. You're going to talk to a human being and actually get support from somebody that you can speak to,
mhm.
both in English and in Spanish.
Yeah, and I noticed that too. It was like one of the key features is the bilingualness of it, because there's a lot of trades and a lot of, contractors that are doing well, the subcontracting
Yep.
speak Spanish. And that's where a lot of the good labor is. So it was important for this
Yes.
platform to be multilingual.
Yes, absolutely. And then it's not to say that they don't speak any English. A lot of the trades are, either second generation or first generation Americans, and they can speak Spanish, and speak English, but it's kind of meeting them where they're at, where we, when it comes to construction, they all speak perfect construction. They all know what framing is, they all know
Mhm.
what, install toilet means, but it's the kind of little things that really help drive home a message or a detail. Being able to do that in Spanish and also offer that in English, Like our mobile app does in messages live translation. So if your language setting is set to Spanish and ours is set to English, and we're messaging back and forth, it will live translate your message that you're sending in Spanish. So it looks like you're speaking to them in Spanish, and then if they're writing to you in Spanish, it'll translate it back in English. Of course, you got to do right spelling and stuff like that, but you'll always be able to figure it out better than if there was no translation. So is it going to be perfect? No, but it's going to already be, miles better than just trying to figure out with sign language on the job site and pointing at things, what each person means and what needs to get done.
That's really cool. Did you guys build that technology, that piece of it yourself, or did you bolt on
No,
something
so
else?
that's a bolt-on, so that you can actually get done with the Google API, that you can tap into the Google translation tool. But
Yep.
now I think an even better one is, I know Microsoft has one through ChatGPT. So you can actually use OpenAI's software. I think the API calls are a bit too expensive to be using it solely for translation. I think you want to use Microsoft. I think one of the Azure products has that translation service. You do pay per message. It's
Hmm.
fractions of a penny. And for now, we're not really too focused on what that would cost. And it's more about, trying to provide as much value as possible. And if people love the feature, you know, you can even add a cap to how many messages you get, and then you're gonna have to just buy more later on.
Right. Yeah, but if it's a fraction of a penny, I mean, I can't see that adding up to too much, unless you
Exactly.
got multiple projects going on. And if that is the case, then you just build that into the
You'll pay.
budget. You build it
Yeah,
into the
you
budget.
build it in. Right.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. I like that a lot. And I can see too, like that would really help to limit miscommunication because sometimes it's just like people aren't trying to get over all the time, but things just aren't said where other people can understand it. And you got two people speaking two different languages, two different cultures. Like you could be very direct, and the person on the other end could completely misinterpret what it is that you said and what you meant.
Absolutely. And again, we're speaking construction, so the translations aren't too heavy, and we're not trying to drive messages of like how's your day going, kids soccer practice and stuff like that. It's really just business terms too.
Hmm.
And a lot of this stuff, when it comes to these scopes of work and stuff, it's already pre-populated in the app. So we've already kind of rinsed and repeated these descriptions of, how to frame a wall, and then having that properly translated. So then really when it comes to the messaging, it's just kind of refining the details and some day-to-day stuff. But when it comes to the scope of work and contractually speaking, it's pretty ironclad, and the translations are 99.9% accurate.
That's really cool. I like that. I didn't know it did that.
Yes.
So what was the rollout process like? So you guys have been launched since when did you guys launch?
So we originally launched about a year ago,
Okay.
through a beta. I've actually built the app probably three different times now. I'm on my third iteration of the mobile app with a third development team. It's extremely difficult to launch software, especially with zero tech background. I have no tech background whatsoever. So for a very long time, you're getting told one thing and like really nothing was happening, and I couldn't really vet that or figure that out. So the whole I learned about construction project management kind of by just doing it, and then mobile app development is something I've had to learn as well by just doing it. So we're on our third launch. We're doing again on the beta launch on the new software. We built it basically from scratch again because the first versions just weren't really working, and nobody could tell me why. So I ended up just scratching that, getting rid of that team, and then starting a whole new build, with a lot of lessons we have learned, but then a lot of features and stuff that I've just learned on my own that we're able to actually integrate, that are going to make the app that much better and that much more focused on the real estate investor fix and flipper. A lot of the projects and kind of scope of works that we have built out are meant for you to flip a residential home. And then as we expand, as we grow, we will eventually be able to build out, new construction scopes of works and, task lists and jobs and contracts. We eventually be able to build out, commercial ones or apartments by you just putting a number of buildings, number of units. and building a complete task list and scopes for that. But for now, we're narrowly focused on launching an app that helps in the fix and flip residential remodel space.
That's really cool. So is it only on mobile, or is there like a desktop version? Something a lot of people work from their computers, right?
Yes, so that was actually something we had learned just through trial and error, that the desktop was more important than we thought. Originally, we were like, everybody's going to be in the job site, in the field, creating, checking in on their phone. Everybody has a phone. And what we quickly realized is that we were going to need a desktop version as well, at least for the people that were creating the projects, because the oversight and view is a lot better on a desktop screen than it is mobile. So the desktop screen is where you can virtually manage your project and create these projects. All you really need is some photos. We create the scopes. We'll review pricing with you, post a job, payment schedules and milestones. All that gets created through our platform, and then really it's just like, okay, who's your site superintendent, just checking in on the guys that are supposed to be there and what they're doing and getting it done. So if you hire the right crews, you don't need to tell them and be checking on whether they're doing their job correctly. You just need to be checking in on them and making sure that they're showing up when they're supposed to. Submitting reports and progress reports, whether it's we're trying to make it driven by contractors. So if they are done with work and they need to get paid, they have to submit a bunch of photos. So you technically could be sitting on your computer just approving these photos if it's crews that you trust and you know their work. Um, so desktop is something that we'll be launching in this beta version, and I think it's going to be a tool that a lot of people are going to like, because it does give you that ability to kind of remotely manage multiple jobs and get a lot done. And then when you're out in the field, of course, you'll still need to go check on progress, but you're not engaging with doing updates on your phone as much anymore.
Right. Are payments happening through the platform itself? Are you actually facilitating end-to-end payments?
Yes, we are facilitating end-to-end payments on the platform, and it's part of our kind of revenue model. Whereas platforms like Advisor, Thumbtack, to name a few, or TaskRabbit, they are. I think TaskRabbit does charge based on you making money, so they just add a success and trust fee once you get paid as a contractor. Home Advisor's business model is more of a pay per lead model. We're not doing that. We want to pay per job awarded to contractors and per job, payment process. So part of our payment processing is, the processing fee, our rewarding fee, our success fee for getting you that job. And then in that, we're currently working with insurance providers, trying to figure out how we can get these jobs insured for only the work being done on our platform. So that way, we don't need to be necessarily tracking subcontractors' insurance too much, although we do make it part of our initial onboarding that they need to be insured on their own. But we're trying to integrate insurance as well, so that if they do lapse on their insurance or they come with no insurance, that at least for the job that they're getting on ManyBuild, we do have kind of a policy that covers them and
Mhm.
covers potentially any accidents or any faulty work on the job site. A lot of lenders required as well as you being a fix and flipper, getting a construction loan, you're going to need some kind of dwelling coverage insurance. That as well is something we're going to be integrating on the platform. And maybe over time, we'll be able to kind of show with data that subcontractors that use our platform with all this paperwork and, oversight, maybe we're able to reduce, some insurance claims and pass along those savings to the marketplace.
So when I meant payments, like I'm talking about like money for the projects themselves, like the paying of subcontractors and the funding of
Yes.
projects from lenders and like that money flow that happens from like just getting the draw from the private money lender and then paying subs. Is that happening on the platform?
So we connect the payments from the investor to the subcontractors. So for work completed on the platform and contracts awarded on the platform, we do process payments from the real estate investors, the flippers account to the subcontractors account. That way there's a clear paper trail as well as who's been getting paid what. And then we're working with private lenders, but right now we are facilitating the transfers from the lenders to the investors. Eventually, that is our goal. We also want to eventually be able to offer this oversight to every lender that's approved a loan on our platform, allow that lender to kind of see an overview, like a spider web of every project, which contractors they've hired, where has their money that they've lent flowed to, right? Which contractors have been paid. And it basically helps reduce the amount of work that needs to be done on a construction job because the information is already there. It gives them more oversight. They can keep their antiquated Excel sheets for draws if they want to. But a draw can already basically be visually approved because they can see the payments being processed. They can see the photos associated to those payments being processed. Then ultimately, the goal is that we do facilitate that lending piece, or we facilitate lenders to be able to lend through our platform, and then creating kind of an end-to-end oversight of how that money is flowing. Because as you know, I
Hmm.
mean, a lot of times lenders either overextend themselves on a loan and they've released too much money, and now the contractors have disappeared, and there's not enough money to finish the job, or just blatant fraud where a flipper will come in, pay themselves, and just leave the job site. So
Oh
there
yeah.
there is stuff like that that happens a lot, and hopefully this solution can help reduce a lot of that.
Yeah. Have you heard of a company called Build Wallet?
Build Wallet, but I have, Built is another one that helps with construction jobs for large like commercial jobs, commercial projects,
Yeah.
but I haven't heard of Build Wallet.
Yeah. I'll make an intro. A friend of mine, his name's Jake Harris, started a company called Build Wallet, and I think their payment system's on the blockchain.
Oh,
And they have this whole end-to-end funding thing where they create micro accounts for each like trade, and all the money moves, and it's really cool. I think you guys would have a good conversation. There might be a cool either a partnership or integration that you guys could talk about.
app integration, because like I mean we're connected with Stripe, right? So it's not like we are building out this payment processing system. We're not trying to get into that business, the
Yeah.
actual end-to-end connections. We're definitely looking to just plug into something existing. I mean, yeah, I just looked them up online. It's definitely very interesting. It's exactly what we're trying to do. We can probably bring them the users, and they can bring us the money.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of really cool stuff. I've known him for a few years and watched kind of the evolution of his company. Yeah, so I'll set up an intro for you guys to talk. Maybe there's something there, maybe not. There may end up being too much overlap, but they've done a lot of the work already. That's that whole thing about, buy or build in software, right? It's a thing that software providers are always thinking about. Like, should we go build this from scratch, or can we just, you know, bolt something on, take some code or do a JV partnership to limit the out-of-pocket costs? Because like you said, like sometimes, you don't want to go just build everything. At Privy, it's the same thing we face every day. To this day, people are always like, are you ever going to add skip tracing? I'm like, there's 1,000 skip tracing companies out there. Like, we don't need to build another skip tracing company, right? Just because, people need it. It's just not, a good idea to do that. Um, so yeah, I'll make that intro for you guys.
Oh, that'd be great. I mean, I think at the end of the day, I mean, software is getting to the place where it's, being so heavily commoditized and everything can be built so easily. It's all about traction, niching super down and being super specific, and then who gets the most users. Because at the end of the day, ManyBuild can. It's not like some new AI digital platform. It's bolting on different features and software and even screens from other apps,
Right.
putting it together, and then marketing to a different niche. And I'm sure there's people that are already trying to do the same thing. But hopefully our story is a little different. We do a couple things that are better, and we're
Yep.
just more known. At the end of the day, that's really what's gonna make it successful. I mean, there was Facebook before Facebook, but Facebook somehow won.
Yeah. Well, MySpace, is that what you're referring
Um,
to?
yeah, there's
Yeah.
MySpace, there was Friendster or something like that.
Yep.
I was listening to a recent interview, and even Yahoo at the time was trying something similar. Like everybody was trying to crack the social media game, and there were multiple competitors. And then construction industry is such a huge industry too that there's
Hmm.
enough room for multiple companies to coexist and work alongside each other doing the exact same thing.
Yep. Yep. There's always competitors out there.
Yeah.
But it is about like, building something that people want. So have you talked to a lot of contractors and talked to a lot of investors to get their like feedback about what it is you're building, or did you decide to build it based off of your own experience and then you're just hoping that it solves enough problems, or both?
It's been a little bit of both. So definitely been building mostly off of my own experience. Because again, fix and flipping real estate investing, you're not going to be, especially on the construction side, reinventing the wheel. The processes of flipping a house are very similar, no matter what state you're in. Codes might be different, inspections might be different, but the actual sequencing of the work, how to do the work, is a lot of overlap. So I ended up first building a solution that was meant for me, and then we had already, we had a beta that had already gotten into the hands of subcontractors. I've already spoken to multiple real estate investors, even at the Cash Flow Club, right? We have a great investor network there too. Um, but I would say that is something I've always thought of. We've definitely built a little too heavy based off of just my opinion and feedback. So I've been rushing them. I'm like, I just need something. Just give me something I can start putting in people's hands, because I guarantee you, I might be able to get some people to pay for it and I want to use it. But we need more feedback now, because as much as I'd like to think I have enough experience to do it, I guarantee you I'm maybe overvaluing one feature over another. And at the end of the day, you want to get the product in people's hands as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Which is why we're kind of, I'm pushing for it, and hopefully we can get something out soon.
Yeah, we were talking the other day, and you're actually looking for people to use the platform right now, right? So what is it that you need help with, and how are you pushing this out to potential users?
Yeah, so it's actually great segue there, what you did there. We're trying to get the first version of the mobile app in about 3 to 5 different flippers, maybe in different markets at the same time, into their hands. There'll be a combination of the mobile app as well as the virtual construction assistant, and then some other third-party tools that will help integrate into your business. We want to do it completely free, ideally for a project that is starting from the beginning, either you're about to close on a flip or you just closed on it. We want to get a project from the beginning all the way to the end, basically through completion, um, where you're staging the home, and then basically from staging, we have nothing to do with that project, and we consider that complete once the final contractor has been paid. But that is the next kind of offer that we're doing, is we'd like to offer that for free for a project, relatively simple project. I'd say a 3 to 5 month flip. It should cover the majority of them, but anything bigger than that, unfortunately, the marketing promo budget to give you more than 5 months of free virtual assistants and software doesn't do it. But I think we can get your project done in that time frame or less. Most flips should be able to get done in less, especially if you're using our administrators and our contractors and systems. Can't make any claims yet, but I'm sure I'll be able to get somebody that could say, yeah, we saved like 30% time here, went
Hmm.
faster than expected, saved people money. Because the virtual system, you were to go talk which vendors. We have a lot of vendors nationwide, even that, because we're builders as well. We have vendor discounts that we can get at lumber yards, tile companies, and stuff like that. So that's something we want to test out with the next batch of flippers or real estate investors.
Cool. So they could be in any market. And
Yep.
so what's the criteria? Is any market project that's 3 to 5 months, somebody who's got experience, they know what they're doing, probably somebody who's willing to give feedback and be a little,
Yes.
um, I don't know what the word would be, but okay with, things not working perfectly, right? Because this is a beta, right? So providing
Correct.
feedback and having a little bit of grace that they know what they're part of.
Yeah, but I would say, I mean, the point of having a virtual assistant is to cover any issues or bases that the software might be messing up on. Like, let's say contracts aren't working for some reason. Okay, we'll hop in and the virtual assistant can just do it manually for you through DocuSign, or payment process isn't working. Okay, he can tap your shoulder and be like, okay, this is how much you need to pay through Venmo or Zelle, but still updating, keeping your invoices and stuff up to date. So we hopefully, yes, give us feedback. Yes, treat it with grace, but it will not be adding to the stress levels of running a flip already.
Right.
Because that is one of the issues, is like we don't want to be testing something and adding more stress to an already pretty stressful situation that is construction in general.
Yep. I love it. Well, so how can people find you, Alex? If someone wants to connect with you and potentially be a part of this beta, or learn more about ManyBuild, how can they contact you?
The best place to contact me would be on Instagram at Lovera Builds, Lovera Builds is in building. And you can always, check out our website, Alex at or manybuildsolutions.com, www.manybuildsolutions.com. And then hit me up by email, alex at manybuildsolutions.com. So I'd say best way though is on Instagram. Just shoot me a DM. I'm constantly on there, as I'm sure a lot of people are. So just shoot me a message there. I'll send you an invite to fill out a form, and then we'll get on a call and see if I can get your project qualified.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for sharing ManyBuild. I'm really excited for you guys to get this out there and start, getting some user base, getting some traction. I'm still really open to the idea of us doing a project together. So let's keep our ears open. If anybody has any deals in Colorado where it would be a good fix and flip, send them to Alex and I. We're looking to, potentially, do a project there. And thanks again, man. Thanks for taking the time.
Of course, thank you, Benson. I appreciate your time, and yeah, I'm open to doing that project, and it would be great to kind of test it ourselves and maybe make a series out of it or something.
That would be
Bring people along
awesome.
for the ride.
Oh yeah, it'd be cool to film it, create content around it, and there's all kinds of cool things we could do there. So everybody, thank you so much for watching this edition of the REI Hacker Podcast with Alex Lovera. And reach out to ManyBuild. Check out his content. Go register, or not register, but follow him on Instagram. He puts some cool content out there. And yeah, if you are here in the Colorado market, check out the Cashflow Club. We're both organizers of this amazing group. We meet once a month and we talk about all different things real estate investing. The last one we did was about zoning and zoning opportunities and ways of setting up projects for making money and things to be aware of. And so join us next time we do that. But thanks again for listening, and keep an eye out for more really cool guests like Alex about real estate investing and entrepreneurship and business. And we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for listening.
That's a wrap on today's Real Estate Revelations. Thank you for tuning into the REI Hacker Podcast. Remember, every property has a story, and every deal is a lesson. Until next time, keep hacking the real estate world.